All right, so moving on to the production itself. As I said, we moved away from the 3 FX30 concept and we went for the red, but we only had one and I couldn't find another one to rent and none of us really knew how to operate it. That's Peter's team. He brought over an assistant called U. So we had to call him Mr. U. As after the first 24 hours of U's doing this, who's you? You needs to do that. You're in charge. No, you were supposed to do that. It just got too confusing. So we called him Mr. U. So Mr. U was really the focus puller and the AC on the red. And Abdil, who came in, wonderful Mexican guy, was helping us as AC on both of the cameras, on the C300 and on the red. Now there's another little lesson. Abdil, terrific personality, always happy, always smiling. We had a very difficult shoot ahead of us. I'll explain now the main adversary, if you like, to a pleasant time, which was to do with the location. But people like Abdil being on the set, who are always upbeat, always smiling, have that energy, are just happy to be there. It infects everybody else, and it adds a huge percentage to your to what you can get done and how much people will put in. So there's a lesson there. Those people are really, really valuable. And alongside of him is my good friend Sasan Kave, who's basically like a refugee from Iran living in Indonesia. He's been involved in production for a long, long time and knows a lot. He knows lighting, production. He is a sound recordist. He's directed. He's worked on television in various countries. He's the guy that quietly gets on with like, oh, I know what we need to do here. We need to lock tie this light into position in this strange location and make it work. And he does it. So excellent to have these people on set. And a couple of others I'll come to later. So it's these types of personalities can make a huge difference to your production. So seek them out, grab them if you can, and don't exploit them, but they can really make a difference. So include them where you can. So going back to the camera, my C300 Mark II was going to have to be our second camera. We did camera tests and we learned two things. In a well-lit situation, I'm almost beginning to agree with the conspiracy theory that there's been no major innovations in camera sensor technology since the 5D Mark II, period. And that you can see why Arri stuck with the same sensor for such a long time, because although they have more dynamic range than most other cameras, the changes seem to have been in frame rates, in special features that the cameras have, the housings, the codecs used. But really, in a well-lit situation on our test, there was not much difference between what was a 50,000 euro red setup. Not now, those cameras will come down a lot in value, and my cheap little C300 Mark II. So I wondered if we could use my R5 as well. It just shoots 8K RAW. And we did some tests with it. Again, the footage, the image was not miles away from the other two cameras. I think it was possibly slightly better than the C300 Mark II. New technology, full frame sensor. But you can't trust it in 8K RAW. Is it going to overheat? Massive files in addition to the huge ones coming out of the red. I did buy a 12 terabyte mobile storage and got DIT Vishnu to take care of that for us. More about him later. But it just proved to be too difficult. I could see Peter really didn't want to use it. So we used it for behind the scenes and a few shots that didn't make it to the final film. So basically with that setup, we were able to cover things, but we'll come to this in post-production, but because only having two cameras instead of three cameras, going down to two meant that we had two shot and a single shot most of the time, as we had three people in the shot, maybe 50% of the time, at least always having two people talking. So we could shoot simultaneously, which was our plan, because we were trying for the impossible, to shoot a feature film in 4 days. So that required a lot of planning. The first night, actually, we did a walkthrough of the film just for blocking and camera placement. So the guys knew where they were going to be, Peter could plan the lighting, and actors knew where cameras would be. But we had some weird setups where we had Ben. My friend is a French cinematographer, works for a spices company in Bali. He's an in-house videographer, but he helped us out as well. He came and actually operated the C300. He was a whiz with the manual focus because he's a Blackmagic guy. Never got used to autofocus. We ended up with him. He's a hefty guy. He's a strong guy. You know, we go to the gym together. And he's ended up with a C300 on one shoulder shooting this way, and the red camera on his other shoulder shooting the other way, being operated by Peter and you to get the two angles at the same time. So we had to be innovative. It was apparent to me as we were going that it was going to be difficult to get all the coverage that I wanted, and it was really hard work to think on my feet. So there's another lesson that when you are not sure about that you have surplus coverage, you have to know very, very well your script and have the edit in your head to make sure you're getting those shots. And thankfully, the couple of areas where I tripped up, Peter saved me by saying, why don't we do a quick summary? Let's do some close-ups of the key moments. What are the key lines in this scene that you want? Let's do some close-ups of those and get them in the bag in case. That saved me in the edit many times. Now, another production issue, actually I should have mentioned this a little bit in pre-production as well, is that I realized that to shoot the film in this manner, I was going to need a prompter, like a script supervisor, but somebody who could quickly throw a line in without upsetting the actors, get them back on track. Typical solution in a stage play is that, let's say my line is, I've got to go now, and I've forgotten my line. Another actor who realizes I'm flobbing it can say, are you staying? And you say, oh, no, I've got to go. And it puts you back on track. So you can use those techniques for sure. And then you have the prompter in the booth at the bottom of the stage in case it all goes terribly wrong. So we're working on that kind of basis. And I knew we'd have to because we were going to use this Dove Simmons method to shoot stage play-like. And hundreds and hundreds of lines of dialogue. I couldn't expect the actors to know them all perfectly, although they nearly did. I mean, they did an incredible job of learning those lines and running them together outside of rehearsals. So I advertised for somebody, and I got a response from two people, Leith and Ian from Australia. Now, Leith is an actress and turned out to be a radio presenter, and she was absolutely fantastic for this job. Just a really sweet, nice, sympathetic person to put the actors at ease, remind them of their lines without making them feel like they were screwing up too badly. And then Ian came along and was very modestly made himself available to do anything to support the film. I found out later that he's actually quite a big radio show host in Australia and been on many networks and knew his way around production, but he was extremely modest the way he joined. And he subbed for Leith in the first week and during rehearsals when she wasn't available to be the prompter. And when we went to do to start the production, Ian actually said to me, you know this is impossible. You can't shoot a 110 page feature film in 4 nights. He said, I know enough about production. This is impossible. I'm here to help you, but you know you're attempting the impossible. And he said, yeah. And he was invaluable because he was willing to turn his hand to anything. So I need you to be an AD. He's like, what's an AD? Big voice, shout at people, get them in place, make them do things. He's right, I can do that. And he did that and many other things. So I think that's also going back to what I said before about grabbing onto people who've got something to offer and let them contribute. Be careful not to go too far the other way because you don't want them overstepping the mark and trying to do too much and maybe encroaching on other people's territory. But these people who can do multiple roles and adapt from one to the other, very flexible, have a lot of life skills, they're hugely beneficial for your film. So try and get them on, even if they don't seem to fit a role that you'll find on a producer's list of employees or roles. Get them in because you don't know what they can offer. And people have constantly surprised me about what extra skills they have and the contribution that they can make. Now, one of the problems with the production, which was my fault because I made a mistake in the pre-production, was the location. We wanted an expensive looking villa that could appear to be a VIP suite in a hotel and Bali. So there's lots of that. And we found a great one. I say we, it's again, Jessie, my producer, she found it. We went to see it, and it was fantastic. It's just perfect. Huge long garden, big pool. You can hear the waves in the background, close to the beach. It looked like a VIP setup. It was an expensive villa. One huge room. Peter had the great idea of just opening up the room, leaving all the doors and windows open. And it was quite pleasant there during the day. It's up in Tabanan on the west coast of Bali. And I thought, well, that's going to be fantastic because it fits the movie, which is written deliberately to be at night in a supernatural kind of element. And I wanted control of the lighting. We're going to shoot the whole thing at night. So I figured if it's not that hot in the day, it's going to be very pleasant at night. And here's where I was completely wrong, because as soon as the sun went down, because the landmass cools down faster than the sea, we ended up with this humid wind blowing straight into our venue, bringing this sticky, horrible situation for everybody. And it wasn't enough of a wind to cool you down. It was just a gradual drift of this very humid, unpleasant air, and it was horrible. The main room was not air conditioned. We couldn't use the air conditioning anyway if it had, because of the noise. The big fan, Clever Clogs here, had fastened the major light, our big vulcanized light, onto that major fan because it's in perfect position to provide the master light. And that was just, it was just exactly the wrong thing to do. And that made the whole setup just so horrible for everybody, especially actors with makeup on and regular clothes, not beachwear. So between takes, they would have to run into the air-conditioned bedrooms, which were kept as cold as possible, suffer a thermal shock, and have their makeup redone and dabbed down all the time. And the poor guys were dripping, and it wasn't very pleasant for us either, moving lights around. And that was a big mistake that I made. But it was what it was, and the people dealt with it. They got through it. But if you can avoid doing that. I understand I should have gone to a location multiple times, so I'd recommend that. And I would also recommend going in the conditions under which you're going to film and make sure the venue is suitable. One issue that I forgot to mention during pre-production is that I decided to introduce an element of the supernatural into the script. Because horror, supernatural stuff is popular, I was hoping it would make the movie easier to sell. And there's a legend in Bali and Java about a goddess who inhabits one room of a hotel. And in our script, the greedy hotel manager rents that room out. He's not supposed to do that.
Yeah, it's cool. Look, they won't come in alone, but they come in as a pair, and they get done quite quickly, actually.
I'm glad to hear that. Room 327 was the only room I had available for Miss Natasha. And I'm all for local tradition, but I can hardly keep one of my best suites permanently occupied for a sea goddess. They don't exactly pay the bills.
And that's where our cast end up. So that brings in the supernatural element. The second part of that is that there are haters and there are just parasites who often will try and interfere with your film production, especially because they think there's money involved. So prepare yourself for that. So in our case, it wasn't long before we had some local representative, self-elected no doubt, just turning up and saying, well, you're shooting a film, you don't have permission. Like, yes, we do. We have all the permissions. We had all that sorted out. Yes, but these drivers here are from a different part of the island. You're not allowed to use them. I said, yes, we are. We have permission. And if you pay attention, you'll see that we're using all of your local drivers, and these are the extra drivers because you don't have enough. Yes, but your people are coming backwards and forwards. You should be using local accommodation. Yes, we have taken every room in all of your homestays and small hotels. We have everything. And some of the people are having to come because there is no accommodation for them in this village. And it just goes on. And you have to be prepared for this. You have to have everything ticked off. Also make sure, like in our case, we had foreigners, so we have to make sure that they all have the necessary stay permit and work permit, which are not the same thing in Indonesia, and that everybody is legal to work and nobody's doing anything they shouldn't be doing, etc., etc. Because working to the very, very tight schedule you will be on a low budget film, you can't afford to be shut down for a day by some jumped up local official who thinks that he can extract money from you. So make sure you cover yourself. There are times when you're going to shoot guerrilla style and get away with it, but if you're setting up yourself in a particular location for days, don't leave yourself open to these kind of people sabotaging you. Make sure you've got everything you need, permits, all the documentation, and a pit bull terrier who, like my producer, who can send these people packing, satisfy all their requirements, and then just tell them to go away. And that brings us to another important issue. It's Napoleon who's usually credited with the concept of an army marches on its stomach. And this is so important, so important. We didn't skimp on the catering. My girlfriend is an amazing cook, chef, and has catered to large events. Bali is known for its ceremonies and lavish weddings, etc. So most people here are familiar with the concept of these large-scale entertainments and catering. And my girlfriend and her couple of assistants did a fantastic job. So much so that actually when I made a music video a couple of weeks ago that I'll talk about at the end of this, the first question from the people we contacted, who obviously were the ones who worked well for us on this feature film, was not actually about the money. It was whether it would be the same food, whether the food would be provided like last time. It's vital, and it's something that's come back multiple times. And as a person on a set, if you can just grab a drink and something to eat that suits you, that just gets you in the right frame of mind, boosts you in the way that you need, whether you're a matcha, green tea, oat milk specialist, or whether you're just someone who wants to grab a burger or a chocolate bar, whatever it is, if those things are on the set, it makes a massive difference to the people, because you can change their mood in 1 minute. And every time somebody smells there's nice food coming on time, when it's supposed to be, they get fed properly, they feel not only physically better, but feel like they're appreciated and taken care of. That makes a massive difference on your set. So if it was Napoleon who originally said it, he's right. And don't skimp on the catering. So major production issue we came across, and again, it falls back to me. I failed here. One of our central characters, he's playing a non-binary character, and he does a scene talking about his abuse, how he was abused. And it's to make a point to the central character that she's being pathetic and she shouldn't be complaining because he's had real suffering in his life. Now, when I wrote this scene, it was purely imaginary from my side. But as we rehearsed it, we realized that this was hitting quite close to home for Angie, the actor. And he said, yes, this is pretty close to what happened to him. So it was coming from the heart. And so we realized we had to be very sensitive about this and prepare for it. And you have to create a safe feeling environment for an actor to open up when it's intensely personal like this. But Angie's also, he's eccentric, and he was having trouble with the lines quite a lot of the time. And that's one of the reasons we had Leith was fantastic. But I expected that in his major scene, he was going to have a problem with the lines, and it was a long monologue. And I was wrong. He absolutely smashed it, blasted through it. Katya was fantastic because they're all friends at feeding him a little bit of lines when he appeared to go adrift, pulled him back. But he smashed through it. It was just like, oh my God. And everyone clapped and applauded because it was a very, very intense scene. He did a wonderful job. And I thought, oh, thank God for that. That's a major weight off my shoulders. This is going to be great now. Then the story moves on to where he starts to reveal, prompted by the goddess in his head, secrets he's been keeping about the main character's past and the existence, for instance, of a relative, a very close relative that she didn't know. And he completely fell apart. He couldn't remember any of his lines. And Leith was having to prompt him almost 2-3 words at a time. And this is not going to work. I thought, oh my God. I was within 15 minutes of my schedule. Now I'm going to be hours behind. I don't think we can do this. And I called a halt. I said, like, okay, we have to stop. We have to find another way to do this. It's just never going to get done. And it's so awkward. It's not going to work. And I didn't know what to do. And I sat with Angie, and this is where I realized that I'd been remiss in not understanding, not sitting with him and learning about him, that he has dyslexia. And he also has another kind of associative problem. Now, he's a fantastic designer, but he's like numbers, for instance. And sometimes, like happens with dyslexics, the words seem to move on the screen for him. And I mentioned this, I was sitting thinking, what the hell can I do? We need a big screen behind him somehow. I thought, oh, I could get the monitor that the DIT Vishnu is using. And he was at that stage, was teaching in a school. It was not a real DIT, but he's an expert on IT. And I could get his screen, maybe someone could hold it up with the words on, and we were chatting and what we could do. And then Angie said, look, I can read the lines much easier if it's white on black, not black on white. And I was like, oh, great, I should have known this. Vishnu said, well, I can sort that out. It took him literally 2 minutes to copy the entire script, change it, put it to white on black, reload it. And he said, I'll put it on the iPad, put the iPad under the table. Here's my mini mouse. He's always holding his cell phone because he's the social media guy. So put my mini mouse on the back of his cell phone. No one can see it. And he can scroll through and the words can be underneath the table. And it's just, for him, it was so simple. But like simplicity being the hallmark of genius, I mean, I just was stunned at what a fantastic and simple solution that was. So we did that. White on black text on the iPad, underneath the table, where Angie could see it. The mouse on his cell phone, hidden from the camera, and he just scrolled through. And sometimes I had to edit around when it was obvious he was reading, because he was supposed to look down, read the line, look back up, deliver the line, but sometimes he was a bit late. So it wasn't perfect, but oh my God, it just fixed the solution. And I was so grateful to Vishnu and gave him a big hug, and he was nonplussed. He just didn't think he'd done anything special. And he saved me. Lesson learned, ask people for a solution, because it might come from someone you didn't expect it. And also research more. Get to know your people better. Learn where these problems might come. I remember watching a round table with Ridley Scott and talking about problems shooting. And he said, I rarely have a problem. I think he said 40 or maybe 400 TV commercials. He said, I've seen it all before. I see it coming over the hill. I know what problem is coming and we know how to fix it. That's where you need to be. I wasn't. So learn from me and make sure you know your people and know any shortcomings that might be there in the future that could cause you problems, because you might not be as lucky as I was in finding someone with an amazing solution. All right, now a couple of other things. We have a drowning scene. So our evil person drowns our heroine in the bath and thinks he's got away with it. But our goddess, who's resident in that room and gets her power from the water, rises up from the bath and then exacts her vengeance upon the antagonist, the evil murderer. We didn't have any money for special effects. We didn't have an action team. We didn't have stunts. So we had to figure out how to do this for ourselves. The goddess appears in full ceremonial traditional outfit, which is about, once it's wet, 12 to 15 kilos of silk and other materials and a headdress. And we needed it to come up out of the water. So the only way we could do the shot in one, the way we wanted to do it, was to have a shot of the drowning of the actress. Then we have a shot which seems to be the second part of the drowning of the actress, but now it's as Karina, our goddess, under the water. And after she's drowned and goes still underwater, she has to then stand up as the goddess and extract her vengeance on this murderer. But to do this, we have to hold her under the water until kicking around, and then she stops. So now she's drowned. And then for the angle that the shot is when the murderer is now looking in the mirror and she stands up behind him, we needed her to scoot down the bottom of the bath without making too much splashing, and then come up the other side and stand up there and attack him. So she has to hold her breath being drowned, hold her breath underwater, scoot along the bottom of the bath, compose herself, stand up in a regal, godlike manner, and act, dripping the water from the bath from all this heavy, heavy outfit. And getting her in exactly the right place in exactly the right way was not easy. 16 takes. This poor girl, 16 times she was drowned and scooted down the bath, stood up, and we got it. But I was lucky that we had somebody so determined and so resilient. This was something that I didn't anticipate. I didn't plan that scene well enough, and it took a long time to get it right. And if I'd had a prima donna, or I'd had let's say a A-lister actress, I'm sure would not have been prepared to do that. And I was incompetent there. I let the side down because we didn't plan that scene properly. Should have realized how we were going to do it, planned it better. Coulda, shoulda, woulda, and also maybe had some more money for some experts on how to do these things. But lesson being, a complicated scene like that, don't plan it and make it something that I'd be prepared to do. Would I accept to do 16 takes like that if I was going to be the actor? I don't think so. So that was remiss of me. So I think plan ahead, figure out what you would be prepared to do or what a highly paid professional actor would be prepared to do, and be realistic. Plan it better and make sure that it's a reasonable ask. Thank God Askarina did it for me. But she was exhausted and fed up at the end of that, and I abused her willingness. We got the shot, she was very happy, but I should have planned better. That's the lesson from that one. So finally we pulled off the impossible, according to Ian, and we finished at 7 o'clock in the morning. Now, Peter was ecstatic at that section because we had Katya as a former model and Askarina dressed up as the goddess out on the beach. Many of the beaches in Bali have black sand, and so this is a natural black negative fill. And the light was beautiful, sunset. Peter was finally getting some beautiful shots that he was really happy about. I don't think it fully compensated him for all he went through to make this film, to be honest, but he was very happy, and the shots were beautiful. He was able to use them for his show reel, etc. And then at the end, I just wanted to gather everybody together and thank them and call it a wrap. Get everybody organized around the pool, and then I say to them, Ian told me this was impossible. It probably was, but well done, you guys. With all your help and your contributions, etc., we have achieved the impossible. Thank you, it's a wrap, hurrah, everybody really happy and be on their way. The true test came a couple of weeks ago, a year later, when I wanted to do something else, and we see if we could get those people to come back. That's when you learn whether the people feel they were treated properly and contributed, and they were recognized and rewarded adequately for their contribution, if they'll do it again. So that was production. And at the end of production, I felt, woohoo, I've done it. I've shot a feature film. I have made a feature film. And that's it, I wrote it, directed it. Now I need to look for an editor and we'll go from there. But the main job is done, right? Or maybe not.